All right, I'll go next. I'm Roy Churchwell. I'm the area biologist in the Juneau Douglas office, and I manage all of 1C and help manage Unit 1D and Unit 5. So the main hunt that we'll be talking about tonight that I help with is the Gustavus hunt. And so I'll be giving a little bit of information about that towards the end, and then I'll hand it off to Carl, who can introduce himself next.
Hi, folks. Thanks for coming. My name is Carl Koch, and I'm the primary management biologist for Unit 1D. I'm Roy's assistant for all the other areas, but I focus on the TM059 hunt. So if you guys have any questions about that, feel free to give me a call if they're not answered tonight, and we'll do our best to get those answered. Thanks for coming. Turn it over to Frank.
Hey, I'm Frank Robbins. I'm the Petersburg area biologist. I manage units 1B and 3, and our office administers the RM038 hunt, registration moose hunt.
Great, thanks guys. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. Does everybody see the presentation that I have up there? Okay. So I'll just minimize the photos of everyone and get started on the next thing. So to jump into our presentation, the meeting tonight's gonna focus on RMO038, RMO49, and TM059, and I'll have maps of where all those are and give some specific details for each of those hunts as we go through the presentation. So the goals of tonight's meeting is to provide hunters with a review of antler restriction criteria and discuss antler morphology and what makes a moose legal under these different management strategies. And kind of the goal of this whole presentation is to give people the information so they can judge a legal moose while they're out in the field, so that we don't have any sublegal or illegal moose harvested this year. Going through the different parts of tonight's talk, we'll talk about why we have a selective harvest strategy that uses these moose antler restrictions, what a legal moose is. So in most of the areas, it's spike fork 50-inch with 3 brow tines. Also in the MR038 hunt, you can harvest a 2x2 brow tine bull. We'll have slides of moose antlers, so different examples of what are legal moose antlers, and then some antler configurations that you would want to pass up because they aren't legal. We'll talk about permit hunt requirements and the hunter's responsibility in reporting their moose. We also want to point you towards the our video on our website, Is This Moose Legal? It's a really great video that goes through even more information about how to judge a legal moose, and gives a lot of tips for when you're out in the field on how to judge those different moose to see if they're legal or not. And so we'll show you where to find that. Looking at the different hunts, we'll start with MR038. So this is in units 3 and 1B. And so this is Frank's area down by Petersburg, includes QU and the islands out in unit 3, as well as the mainland. And then it also has the very southern portion of unit 1C, which is Hobart Bay, is also part of that RM038 hunt. The Gustavus hunt, RM049, is really small area, just right around Gustavus, and includes that area around Gustavus and what is not included in Glacier Bay National Park. And then the TM059 is all of Unit 1D, and so that's the area up by Haines and Skagway. And that's kind of the area that the TM059 hunt covers. So let's talk a little bit about why we have antler restricted hunts. It mostly stems from concerns for overharvest, but also public safety. And there's been some issues where people thought that we could improve hunt quality by extending the hunt by having these antler restrictions. So these small populations, especially populations like in Gustavus and Haines, are vulnerable to overharvest. And so these antler restrictions allow us to slow down the hunt so that we can manage it better and monitor the moose as they're coming in and make sure that we don't overharvest the population. Also in some of the smaller areas, especially Gustavus, you can have a large number of people hunting in a small area and you get people starting to shoot over top of each other and it can just turn into a bit of a dangerous situation. We also found that the hunt duration declined as hunter participation increased in some of these areas. Especially back in the day, I keep using Gustavus as an example, but that hunt one time ended in like 6 hours because they got their harvest so quickly. And so this is a way to extend that hunt so that people have more time out there and there aren't as many hunters all crowded in trying to get a harvested or to harvest an animal in that short period of time. So it extends the hunt, it makes it safer, and we're better able to manage the harvest because it's extended. So these antler restricted hunts protect middle-aged bulls from harvest. So this provides breeding age, middle-aged males for the females after the hunt is over and improves the bull-cow ratio. For the hunters, though, it provides them the ability to hunt young bulls, so the bulls that are 1 to 2 years old, as well as the older mature bulls, mostly those that are 5+ years old. As I mentioned, it improves hunt quality because it extends the hunt out, so we don't have a lot of hunters trying to harvest the animals that they can in a very short period of time. And it improves public safety because you don't have as many hunters crowded into one area trying to harvest that animal as quickly as possible. So here's some information on the current hunt structure for all of Southeast. And so we're focusing on the hunt units that are in yellow here. So RMO38 is the Unit 1B and 3, as well as a small portion of Unit 1C. RMO49 is that part of Unit 1C around Gustavus. And the TM059 hunt is the Unit 1D hunt. There are some other non-antler restricted hunts. The RMO22 is a Unit 1A hunt. And the RMO46 is Unit 1C remainder, which includes the Chilkat Peninsula and the Taku River and south of there. So the seasons for the RMO38 and RMO49 are September 15th through October 15th. And then the TM059 hunt is September 15th through October 7th. The bag limit in these hunts is 1 bull with spike fork antlers or 50-inch antlers with 3 or more brow tines on at least one side. And then for the RMO38 hunt only, it also includes 2 brow tines on both sides. Another regulation that's unique to the RMO38 hunt is that a damaged, broken, or altered antler is not considered a spike fork antler or a 2x2 antler in that hunt. So you have to be really careful if you're looking at an animal in that hunt with damaged antlers. I want to go over a few of the definitions to start with before we start looking at pictures of different antler configurations. So these definitions will help you determine if you have a legal animal or not. First, we'll go with the definition of a brow tine in the regulations. And a brow tine means a tine emerging from the first branch or brow palm on the main beam of a moose antler. The brow palm is separated from the main palm by a wide bay. A tine originating in or after this bay is not a brow tine. And so you can see on the actual picture over there, the 3 lines go to the brow palm. Then there's a wide bay and a point above that. And that point that's above that is not a brow tine. So this would be a 3-point brow palm. And here's just kind of another picture of that. The drawing on the left is a 4-point brow palm. And then it also has kind of that mid-bay tine that isn't counted on the left there. The picture on the right is the same picture from before. For spikes and forks, the spike or fork needs to be on only one of the antlers. And a spike means antlers of a bull moose with only one tine on at least one side. Also to be noted, male calves are not considered spike bulls. A fork means antlers of a bull moose with only 2 tines on at least one antler. And so spikes and forks would be legal in these hunts. And then a definition of a point is a point or tine is an antler projection at least 1 inch long and longer than it is wide, with the width measured 1 inch or more from the tip. An antler point or tine originating within 2 inches from the base and less than 3 inches in length will not be counted as a brow tine or point. And so those are those points that come off like right near the base of the antler, and we'll have some more examples of that as we go into the presentation here in a few slides. So we kind of went over some of these, but there are regulations specific to that RMO 38 registration hunt. And that is if antlers must be salvaged, they may not be altered prior to completion of all salvage requirements. A damaged, broken, or altered antler is not considered a spike fork antler in units 1B, that portion of 1C south of Point Hobart, and including all Point Houghton drainages and unit 3. So basically they're just saying the boundaries of that RMO 38 hunt unit. Then here's the Burr point regulation that we've mentioned a couple times. And I guess at this point it isn't as new as it used to be, but we still call it kind of a new regulation for spiked fork antlers. So this was intended to benefit the hunter because these points can be kind of hidden under the fur and kind of next to the base of the antler. But any antler point or tine originating within 2 inches of the base, making up a Burr point, and less than 3 inches in length will not be counted as a point. And so that's for those folks, especially if you're shooting spike or fork point antlers, and you come up on those and you see this little spur coming off the bottom. We just didn't want hunters to be surprised by those. And so that's how this regulation came about. So if a Burr point exists on a forked antler, it is less than 2 inches from the base and under 3 inches long, then it won't be counted. So if you're not certain on the distance or the length, you want to make sure that you probably don't shoot that animal because it would be counted as a point in that case. And here's a picture of an example of what we're looking at here. So this is within 2 inches of the base and less than 3 inches long. So this wouldn't be counted to make this this would still be a forked antler bull on that side. And here's a similar picture kind of on the other side of the antler. So once again, it'd still be a forked antler bull. So here's a list of the antler configurations to look for to make a legal bull. So the first one being a spike antler or 1 point on at least one side. A fork antler having 2 points on at least one side. Then the third one is 3 brow tines or points on one brow palm. And then also in RMO 38, you can have 2 brow tine points on both brow palms, or to have a total antler width of 50 inches or greater. And then we always recommend that if you have any question on whether a bull fits into one of these 4 categories, that you should let that bull walk, because it's really hard to judge a lot of these different things on occasion. And it's better to let that bull go than have to turn it in and have it taken away from you. We also have a couple rules of thumb for assessing antlers. So if you see a bull and it has small antlers, that means you're going to look to see whether it has 1 point as a spike or 2 points as a fork on one of the sides. Then for bulls that are medium or larger, the things that you're looking for are whether they have 3 brow tines, or in the RMO 38, whether they're 2 by 2. And then if it's a really large bull, whether you believe that it meets or is greater than that 50-inch criteria. And once again, we can't stress this enough. If you don't know if it fits in any of those, you should let that bull go ahead and walk. Now we're going to go through some pictures, and we'll start with bulls that are probably bulls that you would think are legal, and you can kind of judge as you go through these. So each of these asks if they're legal, but to start out with, they will be. And so this one has 2 undamaged, unbroken, and unaltered points on the right, making that right antler a fork. So that would be a legal bull. And this one, this bull is a spike on the right antler. It does have a broken spike on the left antler, but it is legal because one of them is unbroken. If both antlers happen to be broken, then this would not be a legal bull in RMO 38, just as an example. And this bull is legal with 2 tines on at least one antler. This one actually happens to have forks on both antlers. This one is also legal. It's a bull with only 2 tines on at least one antler. So the right antler on this bull has 2 tines. And this bull has 2 undamaged, unbroken, and unaltered points on the left, making the left antler a fork. So this would be a legal bull. This bull has 3 brow tines on the right antler, making it legal. So that right side is unaltered with 3 brow tines, and so that makes it a legal bull. And this bull has 3 tines on the right antler, making that legal as well. And then this bull, even though it has 2 or 1 brow palm on 1 point on each brow palm, it is greater than 50 inches in the antler spread, so that makes it legal for this bull. So those are some antler configurations that show bulls that are acceptable, but now we're going to go through some that are antlers that you'd want to avoid. And so this one has 1 brow tine on each side, and then 3 or more points on it, each antler. And so there's no way to make this a legal bull, so it's not legal. This is a 3-point bull on both sides, so that would not be legal. This is also not legal. It's a 3-point bull on one side. I think the antler is broken off on the other side, but since it's 3 on the one side, that doesn't count as a legal animal. And this one also you wouldn't want to take a chance with. The 2 points on the right antler might be less than 1 inch, but they kind of look like they're more than 1 inch. So this is not a legal animal either. So this is a 2x2 brow tine bull, which would be legal in RMO 38, but in the other hunts, this would not be a legal bull. And this is a legal bull, but we just wanted to point out this mid-bay tine on the left antler. So the right antler does have a 3-point brow palm, so making it a legal bull. But there is kind of this drop down mid-bay tine on the left antler that we want to caution folks about. That would not be counted as a brow tine. And so if you were just looking at that one antler, it wouldn't be a legal bull. This bull is probably not a 2x2, and it definitely isn't 50 inches, so it wouldn't be a legal bull. And this bull doesn't fit any of the criteria to make it legal, so it wouldn't be legal. And except in RMO 38, where it would be legal with the 2x2 brow tines, it wouldn't be legal in any of either of the other 2 hunts. And so those are some examples of bulls that we wouldn't suggest that people try to harvest, because yeah, in all of those cases, they wouldn't be legal animals for harvest. I did mention before the "Is This Moose Legal" video, and we really do suggest that folks try to watch that. And you can find that at this website, which is on our Fish and Game, Alaska Department of Fish and Game website. And if you go under moose hunting, you can find it there. There's also an interesting video on how to be safe around bears while you're hunting. And that's under the bears section in our Fish and Game website. And so that's just another video that we thought folks may be interested in. So that might be another one that you'd want to look at. And that's on our YouTube channel that Abby talked about in the beginning of the presentation. There's also some field references that we have that you can pick up at most of the fish and game offices. You can take these with you out in the field if you want some references while you're out there. So the first one is how to judge moose antlers in antler restricted areas. And then the other one, it gives some information on field dressing big game. And this particular guide will describe how to use the gutless method for cleaning and butchering a big game animal. And so you don't have to gut it with this method. And it allows you, some people think it's a cleaner way to butcher up an animal. And so that might be worth looking at as well. And you can, like I say, find those at most of the fish and game offices. So we're getting close to wrapping up, but there's a couple more things that I want to go over. So some hunter responsibilities. Once you do get an animal, you want to check it in with Fish and Game to let them know that you harvested a moose. When you do that, they'll get some antler measurements. They'll get the lower jaw from you as well as your hunt report. And so make sure that you give those things to them when they check in with you. You know, sometimes as you're sitting there chatting with the Fish and Game folks, you know, they might walk away and forget your hunt report. And so just if you can help them remember to get that from you, that will help them out. If you are hunting in and around private land, make sure that you get permission from the landowner to hunt on that land. And then also there's a good chance you might run into the troopers while you're out there hunting. If you do get checked by the troopers, that doesn't count as a check-in with Fish and Game. Oftentimes the troopers don't have time to let us know who they've checked in with. And so we won't know if you've harvested an animal necessarily if you check in with the troopers. If you do happen to harvest a non-legal moose, you do want to report it immediately and bring it to the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. And we'll take that meat and we usually provide it to the community that's nearby where the moose was harvested. So a couple regulations that sometimes get people hung up. You want to make sure that you bring your antlers out with the last load of meat and not before. And so that's a regulation requirement. It's illegal to use a wireless communication device to aid in taking big game. So you don't want to be talking on your cell phone while you're out there because it could be that someone's helping you key in on where a moose is with that, and that would not be legal. Electronic moose calls are illegal and can't be used. And as we've mentioned a couple times during this talk, it's illegal to alter antlers prior to sealing. So you need to have those checked by either a trooper or Fish and Game before those are altered. And then proxy hunters and beneficiaries must destroy all antlers after Fish and Game measures them. And then they have to deliver all the salvageable meat to the beneficiary. Here's a list of the different check stations that are available for each of the hunts. And so the RMO 38, you need to report within 5 days. And here's the different places you can do that. So in Wrangell at the US Forest Service office, you can do that by appointment. You can give them a call at this number, 907-660-7108. They're there Monday through Friday, although we do have folks coming in on Monday and leaving on Friday, so hours on those 2 days will be a little bit reduced. In Cake, you can go to the SOS Value Mart and they'll check moose there. In Craig, you can call Ellen Hannon and her phone number's there if you plan to check a moose in Craig. And then in Petersburg and Ketchikan, you can check in moose during regular office hours at the Fish and Game offices, Monday through Friday. At the RMO 49 hunt, the reporting requirement is within 24 hours. And we have a moose hotline that we have set up for that Gustavus hunt. And so we suggest that folks call that, and I check that multiple times a day to see if folks have reported a moose harvest on there. For the TMO 59, you need to report within 3 days. You can check in a moose Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30 at the Fish and Game office in Haines. And then they're sometimes open Saturday and Sunday off and on, but if the office is unmanned, you can leave a message at 465-4329, and they will be checking messages there to find out who's harvested moose. So when you do bring a moose into a check station or catch up with a Fish and Game officer out in the field, if it's a legal moose, they'll check to see if it's a legal animal and then get some measurements on the antlers and probably pull a tooth for you and maybe get a hair sample or some other samples if needed. If it's a questionable moose, the person at the check station will determine if it's questionable or not legal moose, and then they'll probably confer with a few other biologists and troopers to get their opinions on it. The final determination is almost always made by a trooper, and so we'll get the local trooper to come in and make that determination if it is a questionable moose. And then if the moose ends up not being legal, the moose will be left with the Fish and Game officer and distributed based on an Alaska Wildlife Trooper list for each of the different hunt areas where the moose is near where the moose is harvested. And so it'll go to a charity. You know, sometimes they go to the local school or the local church. It just depends on who is up next on that Alaska Wildlife Trooper list to know who's going to get the next one. So we do encourage, as I've said a couple times, folks to watch the Is This Moose Legal video. Antlers must be retained until Fish and Game or Wildlife Trooper verifies the configuration and measurement of the antlers. If you don't get a hunt, you're required to report that, or sorry, if you don't get a moose, you're required to report that you did not hunt or you were unsuccessful. So you have to turn in that hunt report within 15 days of the end of the season. And then if you do happen to harvest a non-legal moose, make sure to take the high road, bring it in to us, and we'll provide it to a charity. Just a couple more take-home messages. You know, don't take any chances when you're out there. Make absolutely certain that your moose is legal. Take some time to look at it and make sure you're seeing the points that you think you're seeing. And if you do that and take your time, you'll be able to shoot a legal moose that you'll be able to keep, and that'll make your hunt a lot more enjoyable. You know, if it looks like it's a maybe kind of situation, we just really do stress and suggest that people pass on those moose. They'll probably be bigger next year, and you'll be able to probably harvest that moose in the future. And then really what we want folks to do is enjoy their hunt. You know, we really want folks to be able to fill their freezer, and we hope you guys all have a great season out there. I'll let open it up for questions if anyone has any, and I'll stop sharing my screen now. And so we do have the other Frank and Carl on here. So if there's questions specific to the areas that they manage, we'll have them jump on and answer those questions. I'll probably focus on Gustavus, but Carl can do Unit 1D and Frank can do the MRO 38 hunt for Unit 3 and 1B.
It looks like Eric has his hand up. Eric, you want to unmute yourself, go ahead and ask a question, or you can type it in the chat.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, that was a great presentation. I appreciate it. My question is probably for Carl. I'm going to hunt in TM059, and I'd like maybe a little more clarification on the broken tines, particularly like, for example, if you see a moose that looks like a fork, and then there's possibly a third tine on there that's broken off, you know, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Unit 1D doesn't have the broken antler rule that RMO 38 has, but it still has to meet the definition of a point for it to count as a point. So if it has a fork and there's this broken piece sticking off that's longer than it is wide and at least an inch long, then it would count as a point and make it a third point and an illegal moose. You know, I've had some where it's just the entire palm, all the palms are completely broken off. And in Unit 1D, if that occurred naturally, that can potentially be a legal bull. Of course, everybody just wants a legal one to put in the freezer. Somewhat often they turn out to be in the age class we would hope people didn't harvest, but yeah, in some cases it can be legal. Does that help?
That helps. Yeah. If you have any other thoughts on that, I'd appreciate hearing them.
Well, so somebody brings me a broken antler and that's the only reason that it's legal. I look at it really carefully. I know you pretty well and I don't suspect any malicious behavior from you, Eric, but every once in a while one comes in and it just looks really funky and you think, how exactly did it break in that way? And then sometimes for some hunters, there's more questions. But, you know, if it's, say it's the beam of an antler and it's broken off, again, just be careful if you're in Unit 3, it would not be legal. But if like the beam, the entire palm's broken off and it's several inches long and it's only an inch and a half wide. I hate telling people that, but because if we don't, often it's in a moose, we would prefer get protected, but it you know, would probably be a legal animal. It's hard to answer, you know, without looking at the specific moose, of course. And then, you know, a point has to be an inch long and longer than it is wide. So if there's another, like I said earlier, if there's two points and there's one that's a third one, like maybe that example that Roy gave where he said, you know, don't assume they're an inch long and longer than they are wide. Well, if one of those was broken down, that would just make it even less likely to be to count as a point. But it's really tricky to judge when you're just going on, you know, is enough of it broken off to make it legal. We always push folks to try and go for the ones that are just pretty clean and easily within the regs.
Yeah, I also just want to mention kind of a tradition of the Gustavus Moose Meeting is they have a limit to the number of moose that are harvested each year. And I forgot to mention I do know how many that will be this year. So for those folks hunting in Gustavus, we'll have a harvest of 10 animals this year. So I imagine those folks from Gustavus were probably waiting for me to say that. And so just thought I'd throw that out there because that'll be a question in a few minutes if I hadn't. So.
Yes, it looks like that question was answered. You in the chat here, we had it. Yep. That's what I was wondering. Any other questions while we're here? Now's your chance to bug us with really anything you have. We want to make your harvest as successful as possible.
Yeah, and while folks are thinking up questions, this applies to everybody, but even especially in 1D, you work hard for your moose, you finally get one, consider bringing an electric fence out in the field with you to protect it so the bear doesn't get it, I think if the hunters in Unit 1D know that, or at least most of them should be aware that once we hit 3 male brown bears, I'll close the season. So then having a locking tag just in case won't apply. It would have to be a legal DLP, and it gets sticky when it's coming for your game meat. That's technically not a legal reason for a DLP when it's out in the field. So I'll give serious thought to bringing an electric fence with your buddies out in hunt camp.
That's a really great recommendation, Carl. Thanks for bringing that up. And just in case, so nobody misses it, I did put the link to the Wildlife Safety for Hunters YouTube presentation from September of last year in the chat. It was presented by my counterparts, Mike Terrace and Marianne Snively, who are in Anchorage and Fairbanks. And Mike Terrace has massive amounts of experience with hunting moose himself and just in the field. And he's a trained wildlife safety instructor. So they just have some really great information on safety around bears in the field, and highly recommend people check that out. You can fast forward through it all, or some of the pieces, anything you want to take away from it, but it's there available for you if you want to check it out.